Hello. I guess I'll just wait for people to come in. Hey, Wendy. I'll just wait for Grant so I can introduce myself to both you guys and him. Okay, well, while we're waiting for people to come in, I guess I'll introduce myself first. My name is Lulit. I am an executive board member of the Youth Activism Project for... Hello, hey, Grant is here, okay. Wait.
Hi.
Hi.
Good.
How are
How are
you?
you?
I'm very good. Nice to meet you, Grant.
Likewise.
Okay, I was just introducing myself real quick since this is my first Activated Thursday. Yeah, my name is Lulit. I'm an executive board member of the Youth Activism Project for about a year now, but I've been working with the app for around 4 years for mainly social justice and health advocacy. But in the past year or two, I've been, kind of honing in on my skills of community organizing and basically figuring out how to be an advocate for activists like you and people who work with the app. Yeah, and I'm hoping to do a lot of these in the future. And there's not many people here, so we should wait a little bit for a
I'm
couple more people to
down.
come
I'm
in
down.
before we start. Have you been?
I've been doing good. How are you?
I've been doing okay. It's a hard time, hard to stay
hmm
positive, watching the news and things like that. But
Yes. With everything going on, I was really about to do like a social media cleanse this weekend because it's just like every single day on social media, it's something. Like my friend
yeah,
saw this morning about Taco Bell, and I was just like, what is going on? Like, we all just need a break.
what about Taco Bell?
It's basically they said that Taco Bell allegedly fired an employee for um supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. Like they did something during their job in support of Black Lives Matter and they got fired. And so,
That's not
yeah,
surprising because they're
it's not.
endorsing Trump's reelection, just as many other fast food places do.
Exactly. And I'm just
Yeah,
like at this point, I'm just like
it's a
I just wanna
lot.
go
It's a
to an
lot.
island.
Yeah.
Yes. Just go to an island
Yeah.
offshore.
Honestly, I've been trying to keep myself away from social media, but I haven't been successful at it because I just want to be in the loop as much as possible and I want to do my part in informing people, but it's just hard waking up and seeing traumatic stuff every single day.
Trying to set this
Okay.
here. Okay, there we go. Will it stay
I
balanced?
think.
Yes, it will.
Okay. And as people come in, we can just quickly reintroduce you. But okay, yeah. So let's start. Our guest today is Grant Loveless. That's a really cool last name, by the way. I've never
Thank
heard
you,
that.
thank you, thank you.
Um, so you are an AfroQueer and non-binary youth advocate and social entrepreneur based in Austin, Texas. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. So you want to talk a little bit about yourself, about your titles?
absolutely. So
Hmm.
as she was saying, my name is Grant Loveless. And in the city of Austin, I work as a youth advocate, student leader, and college liaison for various nonprofits in the Austin metropolitan area and in like neighboring cities. Anyways, but yes, so
Uh-huh.
within my work with Measure, I work with Measure Austin. I work as their social media guru and digital storyteller, and I am about to start an initiative with them. And yeah, so in the city of Austin, I just do a lot of work with students, making sure that they have their voices amplified and heard, and they do have a seat at a table on with nonprofits and other organizations and businesses that are youth focused but don't have any youth to actually have their voice heard when they do like their programs and
Right.
events and stuff. So that's the work that I mainly do.
Hmm. So, like, what got you into this, like, the whole world of advocacy for youth?
So for me, it all started in high school. My senior year, my junior senior year, I recognized that a lot of the LGBTQ students on my campus were being harassed and bullied. One student, one of the only trans students on their campus, they were being harassed. And one day they were going to the bathroom and they were being harassed by these boys, walking to the girls' restroom. And so when they told me that, I went to the principal the same day. I said, "We are going to do something, okay?" And I had asked them with this idea that I thought that was crazy. I was like, "We should create a team or a group that is for LGBTQ students on our campus." And he told me no. I mean, he didn't tell me no. He just said, "At the time, we can't do it," but that's a no. And so I
Yeah.
was rebellious and I said, okay, we can do something. So I found a sponsor. I created a group. I got a lot of the LGBTQ students involved in that group that was called Unity. And also got them involved with a group called Models Closet that that had students practice modeling, runway walking, and all those other beautiful things that go on during fashion shows. And so that's how I actually got
Hmm.
started with that first no, because with that, it just clicked in my brain. Like, if they are unable to do it, then, and if I have the idea and the passion to do so, then I would do it.
Right. You found a way. That was your call to action.
Okay, I found a way.
You found a way. That's amazing. Okay. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the work you've done with us with the Youth Activism Project or your article? I read it today. Your 5 tips on for youth on the front lines. I thought it was really, really inspiring because we do a lot of like work to inform people on how to like start campaigns and stuff. But I really liked reading yours. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Absolutely. So I really went
Hmm.
out on a little bit of faith because I had sent out my article to the Youth Activism Project. And at first I was like, nobody's gonna read it because I sent it out to everybody. Okay, I was like, I just had faith,
Hmm.
you just leaping on faith, and it was just so, it was really mind blowing to see like the amount of responses, especially from the Youth Activism Project on my article. But for everybody, my article is called "We Are Here and We Are Still, and We Will Be Heard." And it's 5 tips for youth going on the front lines of advocacy, change, and justice. And so, with my article, I focus on 5 different tips. The first being self care, the second being finding your vision and your why. The third is being aware is who is for you and against you. Um, the fourth one is about time management, and the fifth one is about you are never alone, and that you do have a community behind you. Because the reason for the article was because one of my friends who's getting into activism, who's in high school. This is so funny because it sounds just like how I was in high school, but they are in their senior year and they want to know how they can get involved in advocacy because they went to a protest and they had texted me like, Grant, I really want to get more involved. What are ways that I can do so and what I need to know going in. And so I created the article specifically for that person. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna publish it. I'm just gonna leap on faith. And
Yeah.
so with that came the article because a lot of times when youth do get involved with advocacy and community, with advocacy and activism. There we go. Um, we are a necessity, and sometimes an untapped resource. And sometimes let me tell you something, when nonprofits and businesses and organizations and individuals who've been doing the work in the community realize that you're passionate and you're ready and that you want to do the work, sometimes you can overwork yourself by trying to get involved with everybody and anything because in your mind you're like, I
Right.
want to help people, but who do you want to help specifically? What's the cause? Do you want to work with animals and do something with animal rights? Do you want to work with students and do something with community and civic engagement? Do you want to work within technology and engineering? Like, there's a vast majority of things that
Right.
require advocacy and attention that we can't do it all. Like, even though I have a beautiful dog, I'm not involved in animal rights whatsoever. Okay,
Right.
and and it's
Yeah.
okay not to be involved in everything. But yeah.
Yeah, and also just on top of that, like before you find your passion, before you find your group to create like a whole coalition, like you
Hmm.
have to first focus on being taken seriously as a whole.
Exactly.
Like you said, you have to put in the work and then you have to go ahead and like make them know that you're trying to put in the work and you have to be taken seriously no matter your age. So yeah, I think your article touched on that, and there's this one quote I want to read from it that I really liked. You said, "Once you have a community backing you up, you will be unstoppable. If you are not given a seat at the table, build your own table and
Hmm.
create the change you want to see. Your existence does not need validation. You are a force and a resistance." And I really like that, especially the last line. Um, Especially since you focus on intersectionality, I just feel like
Hmm.
it's important for intersectional visibility to like just the idea that the more marginalizing factors and identities you have stacked on top of you, it's even harder to be seen, especially
Hmm.
like at times like this by the BLM community. You know, some people are anti-racist and pro-black, but not necessarily for queer people, and it's not talked about as much.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today was just during Pride Month visibility for the LGBTQ plus community and the conversation about intersectionality. Yeah, so how would you define intersectionality?
I would say intersectionality, of course, is a concept, but with it being applied, it's all about looking how like different identities line up to in one intersecting part and what are like the underlying social aspects of it. For example,
Mm-hmm.
with me being a queer black man amongst my other identities, but me being an AfroQueer man or a non-binary person,
Mm-hmm.
it's like how are these intersections actually affecting me as a person for the good or for the worse? And so intersectionality just looks
Mm-hmm.
into that concept as a whole. Like if I am if I'm a trans Latinx man, then how am I being affected by society? Or if I'm a queer Asian woman, what does that look like? So looking at those different intersections and looking at like how that applies to your social awareness and your mindfulness.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think now, especially during this month, a lot of people are
Hmm.
kind of regurgitating the definition of intersectionality or kind of just talking about it as a concept, but like you said, they don't know how to apply it or
Hmm.
emphasize it in real life. Or when things aren't just as surface level as black and white or man and
Hmm.
woman, they don't want to put in the work into informing themselves. So yeah, I think it's really important that you touch on that and emphasize that, and especially that you've done it since the beginning of your entry into the world of advocacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, um, how do you think the work you've done kind of serve to promote intersectionality in gen or just in general for the Black Lives Matter movement?
I would say for me, like my very being, as referencing my article, your existence is resistance. So my very being of being an Afro-queer, Black Christian being is me
Right.
representing all those communities at once. And with intersect with the beautiful thing about June is like you get to intersect the LGBTQ community with Juneteenth and what that celebration looks like, and looking at this stride
Hmm.
of idols like what's her name? Well, like James Baldwin and Gladys Bentley and just a bunch of
Right.
other LGBTQ idols that were Black that created pathways for myself and various other Black and queer individuals. And so the work I've done thus far does emphasize that because I like to make sure like everybody's voice is met when they do have a seat at the table to ensure like, okay,
Right.
if we're doing an event about, let's say, students, then how are we going to include LGBTQ students? How are we going to include Black students, the Latinx population, the Asian American population, the Native American population, make sure all of our voices are uplifted from all of our different identities. Um, and also, when you look at like nonprofits and businesses, a lot of times there's a paradigm that they have about equity and inclusion that it only is dependent on, of course, race and gender and sexual orientation, but we're leaving that component of age out of the question. So, are we making sure we
Right.
have an equitable amount of people's voices no matter how young someone can be, because there's a 12-year-old in my city, in the city of Manor, that has his own food organization and food pantry. So students and youth have these ideas and these concepts that have to be heard. And so for my work at Austin Community College and Mid Measure and Austin Justice Coalition and various other nonprofits and organizations, um, I've always made it my mission to make sure collaboration was key. Making sure that if we are doing something with Measure Austin, are we including the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce? Are we including LGBTQ student organizations or Austin Black Pride? Are we including like these organizations and businesses and student-led entities to have a voice? Because I
Right.
can represent the youth. I can represent being queer. I can represent being Black. But some experiences I can say I don't understand. Like I wouldn't understand a point of view from someone who's trans or understand someone's point of view who is Asian American or Native American. And so having those other people's voices being amplified and heard not only helps me gain perspective and a better lens about my experiences and how I can invest in their not their experiences but their work to address and approach said experiences that may or may not have been negative. So yeah, it's just like all the work that I've done, I always make sure like that
Yeah.
collaborative piece is there. And making sure like everyone, like there's everyone, I mean, everybody has a seat at the table because, if we leave out certain people, then we're leaving out probably like a groundbreaking idea because someone
Right.
in this world may be like, you know what, I want to create a campaign for this, that, and the third. And if we don't have them at the table, then how would that idea be heard? You know?
Yeah, and it's amazing that you see it that way because a lot of people, even youth activists, don't necessarily look at it from all those different lenses. Like,
Hmm.
and then that can kind of hurt how they not only create their core group, but how they create their entire network and the allies that they want to because like a lot of allies don't actually believe in the cause in the way that, they say they may,
Exactly.
or like they don't represent different marginalized groups as they should in order
Hmm.
to get the ideas, like you said. Yeah. So that's amazing. Good for you. Especially, yeah. um, so do you think you being a queer advocate for BLM has had its like obstacles or adversities like in your time?
Hmm. I would say like for
Mm.
me, I've worked with people, I wouldn't say specifically in my city, but I've worked with people virtually on different Black Lives Matters, virtual series and events, and they've always left out the part about like having queer people involved or trans people involved or having youth involved to a certain extent. And what I've realized is that with I'm not gonna say with the movement overall, but some people who are creating events for the movement are excluding others in their voices in regards to involving the queer and trans community in other communities of color. And one thing that I've recognized is like there are people that do not identify as African American or Black, but they do have that descendancy. and that their voices need to be
Yeah.
heard. Because like overall, there's a bunch of different racialized communities that do need assistance, that do need help and advocacy, and that they need their voices amplified. And so for me personally, I haven't really been confronted with any like homophobia or hatred whatsoever, but the microaggressions are still there in regards to like me
Of course.
coming in and I'm like, okay, we should do this. And I recognize that my voice isn't being heard. Like they're like, okay, we're listening, but we're not gonna be here for it. And that kind of goes into youth activism. Like sometimes you have to recognize, like, yes, as a black man, I'm here. I'm here. Like I'm here for it. But it's just like at the same time, if I can't intersect my other identities or people who are queer and trans to the table, then what work are we really doing? Because there's
Mhm.
that trans and queer people of color that are dying at a rapid rate as well, as the black men and as well as the black cis men and women that are dying, like George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor, and people have died tragically by police brutality. And so, in the wake of like COVID and with the protests, you kind of get an idea and a view of like even in like your own community, whether it's Black, Latinx, Native American, or any racialized community, that there will be a sense of like of I wouldn't say discrimination, but a sense that you don't really belong there because some communities are built
Right.
for you, like as a Black Latinx person. But what if I'm queer or trans, or what if I identify in a different way, or what if I have different beliefs? Um, and for the All Black Lives Matter movement, which I'm here for, it looks into to pulling those people up and saying, okay, we have queer and trans people that are being hurt and killed and harmed and arrested and kept in jail for no reason. Let's pull them up and have their voices amplified. And make sure like we're hearing what's going on with them. We're hearing their needs. We're hearing what they have to say, and we're being attentive towards his needs and not being dismissive. Because a lot of times you can invite
Right.
people to the table, but to actually listen and have that that listening ear and say, okay, we understand, we're identifying what the issues are, and these are the solutions we're going to create. Instead of being like, okay, you're here, we just need you here, just sit there and look cute. Um, and so yeah, I think that's the beauty of it all about the all Black Lives Matter movement, and even with the Black Lives Matter movement as it is, it's so beautiful to see that
Mhm.
momentum and seeing it change and reform to invite those people on board. Because as we see with social media, of course, day after day, there's more injustices that go on. But we're continuously uniting and protesting and making our voices heard, making sure there is reform and there are resolutions, and that there are problems, and that they will be solved. And so we just keep on showing up, and that's what I love the most about this whole thing. Like we just keep showing up,
Right.
like we're not tired. We might have took a nap, but we back.
Yeah, and I think people forget that queer people led a lot of the big revolutionary
Mm-hmm.
movements in American history. Marsha P. Johnson and Barbara Jordan and people like that, like
Yes.
they showed us what revolutions are, and we kind of forget that. And I just don't understand some of the criticisms I've heard of all Black Lives Matter because um, if you're saying Black Lives Matter as a counter to, of course, all lives matter, but we're focusing on Black lives right now, then I don't understand how you can then look in the Black community and understand all the intersections that make different people marginalized than others. You know what I mean? Like being a Black woman,
Exactly.
being a Black disabled woman, being a Black disabled queer woman, or socioeconomically disadvantaged. Like, yeah, I don't get it. I think there's just a lot of informing that certain BLM anti-racist people need to be aware of because there's still a lot of ignorance going on. And I was just kind of wondering what kind of advice would you give to young people who are trying to bring light to these types of issues that don't focus on intersectionality, trying to build like a grassroots campaign because like you said, people may not be consciously like not giving visibility to these different groups, but you have to kind of, nudge them and be like, maybe we should focus
Hmm.
on this issue, or maybe we should bring in these people to give their different perspectives. So like, how would you advise young people to do that?
I would say first identify your why. Like, why do I want to do this campaign? Why do I want to help these individuals and understand your passions? Like, like for me, when I first got into college, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even know what I was doing. Okay, I was the director of communications for an engineering group. Now let that just sit in and marinate because I'm not even an
Mhm.
engineer, and so it, at all, in no way, shape, or form. And so I was involved. I had my hands in everything. I said, okay, engineering, okay, sustainability, and I was like in all these different things, and I didn't understand what I was doing because I identified after that semester. I looked and I said I was doing all this stuff, but I didn't accomplish anything. So I was busy more than I was productive. And I always tell people there's like a
Right.
fine line between being productive and being busy because being busy, you can, do all the work in the world. You can do the spreadsheets and the Google Docs and the meetings. But what progress are you actually having? And so identifying like
Right.
if you want to do a grassroots campaign to bring awareness towards youth, okay, what specific youth? Are you looking at marginalized youth? Are you looking at youth that have been disenfranchised? And when you look at youth, are you talking about K through 12? Are you talking about the whole system, like the whole higher education system?
Hmm.
And just identifying like how you want to move. And after you identify that why, you can move forward to what am I going to do? Like how am I going to do it? What am I going to do? Who do I need to contact? Because when I got involved, I went to a lot of events, and some people are different, but I promise you, I went to like a lot of different conferences, luncheons, and meetings, and everything, and just connected with people. Because when I looked at like the brochures or the pamphlets or the booklets, whatever they have at events and stuff, I will always like look and say, okay, if I want to be involved in, let's say, social justice work, who on this panel or whoever's speaking and stuff, how can I get to talk to them? Like, how can I like run up and approach them and talk to them? And even if you can't like physically
Hmm.
talk to them, how can you get your voice amplified within that space for them to hear you? Like those type of things, and figuring out like how to move and shake. But I would say figure out your why, and after you figure out your why, it's just from there on, it's just building blocks. Like who in the community has been doing the work in regards to what you want to do and how can you collaborate with them. And if you have this idea, actually, I would say use your friends too. Referencing back to my article, it's like your community can be whoever you want it to be. It can be your teachers, it can be your professors, it could be your parents, it could be your cousins, it could be anybody that you trust and love with because it's your baby. Like whatever you have is a child to you. Like you want to make sure it's protected, that
Right.
is doing well, and that is growing and doing beautiful things. And so yeah, so just ensuring that you solidify your why, and even if you don't know what your why is,
Right.
which a lot of people, which the majority of people don't, just test the waters, but don't do everything at once. Like if you say, okay, I think I'm interested in event planning, then find an event planner and collaborate, or shadow them or intern with them, because it's all about reaching out and asking for those opportunities as well. Because sometimes opportunities
Right.
don't come to everybody. So just reaching out and stepping out in faith and being like, okay, I want to create a grassroots campaign and raise, let's say, $50,000. That is doable. It's just you just need to have that team behind you and that community behind you and that understanding of why. Because
Right.
with every single thing, every single event, program, every single thing I've done, everyone has always asked me, why do you do it? That core reason. Not the why about why you did the
Yeah.
event or why you joined this organization, but like the why. Like what was your spark towards activism or being in this space? And sometimes you can always say, well, look, I just want to help people, which is really my general answer. But sometimes you have to tell the story and be like, I have to do a self discovery phase of figuring out what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Everyone who has a why usually has like that call to action moment like you did,
Mm-hmm.
like I did as well in high school. Like, and even before the why, it's just like it always should start with I care about something vehemently enough to do something about it. And
Exactly.
then again, if you're a member of the youth, you have to create a space for yourself where you're not given one in the first place. And like you said, like community members can literally be anyone, like whoever you start your group with, like at YAP, like we kind of emphasize you just find one person, like a buddy, like kind of like a buddy system, and then you with that one person, like you can have like someone to lean on, if you are ever confused or like trying to find your way and you don't know how, like just someone to bounce ideas off of. And then after that, you can start your core group, finding people who actually care and finding your allies and things like that. And then figuring out all the logistics, the work, the busy work, like as you say. Um, but yeah,
And
so by the way, guys, you guys can ask any questions if you
any
want. I forgot
questions?
to say that, but you guys can just pop in. You can just
And
pop in. Did you have
I
something
was
else to
gonna,
say?
yeah, I was also gonna say, like, sometimes your why can be, as one of these comments says, it can be a deep why. Um, Looking deeper into it, like for me, I've realized that I've have had a very privileged life. Like my father and mother, they have doctorate degrees, and I live in a safe, great neighborhood, out in the country suburban area. And looking back at it, I've always denied the fact that I've had privilege, that I've had the privilege to have the opportunities that I have, and that not everyone in my friend group or not everyone that I meet that I bring to the table has the same experiences as I have had. And realizing that I have this privilege, how can I make sure I can amplify others with this said privilege? Because some people don't like to identify, like, okay, in certain parts of my life, I did have privilege, or even looking deeper into your why, what trauma have I endured, or what microaggressions have I internalized that I did not even realize, that I wasn't conscious about until now. And just looking back and identifying those
Yeah,
parts and building on that, which goes back to that intersectionality part. Because when building my own identity of being Black and Afro-queer and Christian, it's like, how did these affect me, in what way? And growing up, I wasn't mindful about, like, that part of my identity, about being queer and about being Black, and being aware of that. Because way back when, it was, I think, after Trayvon Martin had passed, that I asked my parents the question, what do I do when I'm stopped by a police officer? And it was one of those, and I think it has become kind of normalized to have that conversation, with your Black or brown child, about, if you're approached by a police officer, this is what you do. And that was my first step into understanding that I am Black. Because until that point, I was really living a colorblind life. Like, I didn't realize when my friend said, "You talk so white," that it was a microaggression, and that right there, I
yeah,
could have internalized that into who I am today. And so, just looking back and recognizing, like, that trauma or transgressions or a microaggression is really good, to solidify, not solidify, but strengthen your why, because everyone has a different story
mm,
about who they are today. Some people have went through tragedy. Some people have went through success, and everyone has their ups and downs, um, and tribulations. But at the end of the day, we're all here to help people. So it's good to, like, form your own story, and solidify, your
right.
vision, manifest it.
Manifest it, right? Because, um, like your why, like your story can start with you being sheltered, like you said, you were sheltered for a lot of your life because it's really
Hmm.
important. Just as you acknowledge how you're marginalized, you should also acknowledge the ways in which you're privileged, because it can result in you not seeing or being colorblind, like you said, or
Hmm.
not seeing the ways in which people within your own community are affected, but maybe due to affluency, like just like you said, or like if you're not necessarily socioeconomically disadvantaged or whatever, or due to the
Hmm.
education you receive, like you may not be able, you could be ignorant for a lot of your life. So yeah, it's definitely important to, even if you are marginalized in some way, to recognize your privileges. So kind of when you build that core group, you can lower your voice a little bit to let other people who've had
Hmm.
different experiences than you to speak up and say what they think is important, because you can be blind in a lot of ways. Um, yeah. Any
Yeah, because I think
questions?
it's, yeah,
No? Okay. Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
So Juneteenth is tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah, Juneteenth is tomorrow. Oh, did you have something else to say
No, no,
before we
no,
talk
go.
about that?
No, I'm here for it. I'm all about Juneteenth. I could talk about it all day.
Yeah, Juneteenth. So it's just basically
hmm
celebrating the liberation of Black people through the ending of slavery, very distinct from July 4th, which was not our liberation in any way. In fact, it was the beginning of our subjugation as Black people in this country. But yeah, can you want to talk a little bit about the discussion of Juneteenth and the importance of it and celebrating
Absolutely.
it?
Let me tell y'all something. Juneteenth has always been one of my favorite holidays.
Mhm.
Just to give a little backstory about my parents. I grew up in a household that was full of multiculturalism. My father, he's from Mobile, Alabama, and my mom, she's a native of Trinidad and Tobago. She was born and raised. She was raised in St. Croix, but she was born in Trinidad. And and it was just one of those phenomenal experiences that a lot of people don't get. Like, I woke up with gumbo one day and curry chicken the next, or I would have jambalaya one day and have jerk chicken the next day. And just learning about those different aspects of my of who I am. Like, I just in that cultural piece of it. It's very, I could talk about culture all day, because that's why I love Juneteenth. You get to see that expression of our culture. You get to see the music, the dances, the food, and the ways that we as a community have, basically succeeded. Because a lot of times, I'm not gonna say a lot of times, but in this time right now, there's a lot of tragedy. There's a lot of black and brown bodies being left on the street that are, being hanged on trees. And it's discouraging to see it. And it can be disheartening as well and depressing. Um, but in light of all that, how far have we came? Looking back at our ancestors, or Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, and all the other beautiful civil rights people, and people that helped push for that movement even before them. It's like we have the right to vote. We have the right to create our own businesses and establish LLCs. We can sit in we can sit in integrated areas, like restaurants, and hotels and other things. And these opportunities are the reason why we have to celebrate Juneteenth. Because with the celebration, it's just all about how far we came and how far we are going to go. In light of in light of all these deaths and tragedies, it's like, how are we are continuously finding our strength to go out there and protest. We are continuously finding our strength to,
Yeah.
as I said, go out and protest. Because right now, during the protest, people are being arrested and brutalized. But we still have the energy, we still have the strength, and we still have that versatility to go out there, and fight for the rights that we want. In the city of Austin, actually, we just painted Black Austin Matters, on our Congressway Street. And it's so
Yeah,
yes,
I
like
saw.
it's the most beautiful thing in the world, to be honest. And also with Juneteenth is the celebration of Pride Month. And so I always tell people, like, I can wear my afro and celebrate the stripes on the rainbow flag at the same time. And that's the beauty of it all. Just recognizing that the this the what to call it the struggles and challenges and obstacles, um and the work that black and brown peoples have to do to arrive at this destination that we are now, deserve celebration. Too often, do does America celebrate, July 4th, woohoo. But July 19th is where it's at, because, that's where our roots
Yeah.
are embedded. Like, people in Texas specifically didn't know for 2 years that we were free. So that deserves a whole lot of celebration, because I would have been mad, okay? I would have been like, this ain't gonna work. Where's my reparations? Okay. So it's just like one of those things where you realize, okay, like, because if I was in their place 2 years ago, I would have been looking crazy. I would have been like, so we was free, but they playing us. And so it deserves celebration.
Yeah, I think Texas is the only state that officially like recognizes it as a holiday, actually, which is kind of insane because it's just as notable, even if not more, than Independence Day. And also, it's not taught in schools. Like, I never learned about Juneteenth in school. Like, I kind of only learned about what it was and the importance of it a couple years ago. I don't know if you learned about it,
I didn't
like
learn
living in
about it till my
Texas.
senior year of high school. And that's because I Googled it. It's so horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because I Googled
Okay,
it too.
look.
So, how are you planning to celebrate it?
So I'm going to like a whole bunch of different events. I'm going to a cookout, then I'm speaking at this community kickoff. And then there's like a whole bunch of events going on down the at that I'm going to be at. That I am going to be at. Anyways, I'm gonna be there. And so I just plan to celebrate with my friends and family and peers because throughout all this stuff going on in our socio-political climate, um, we just need to celebrate where we are now. We need to celebrate the fact that we're alive, that we still have our voices, and that we have platforms to share that voice,
Yeah,
and that no matter how many people try to oppress our voices or suppress our voices, we still find a way to have our voices lifted up. And so with Juneteenth, it's not only a celebration of our culture and our music, our dance styles, and our influential force in America because, we're influential 24/7. Um, but it's also a time to celebrate the darkness and the lightness of our melanin. It's a time to just celebrate us as a being and as a whole, and to celebrate our friends and families that have made it throughout all this craziness. Because easily in any street, I could have been one of the people shot and killed, or one of my friends could have been shot and killed, or one of my peers and friends or family could have been shot and killed, or worse. And so it's just like right now with the community that we have and the community that's been mobilized together, um, it's a time for us together to celebrate our success, our achievements, and the success and achievements of our predecessors that did help us get to this very point. Yeah,
hmm yeah. I think it's also just really important, especially at this time, to focus on Black joy rather than Black trauma.
exactly.
Like, I mean, if, like we're still keeping the conversation going, the protests are still going on, but it's nice to revel in your life and your culture and things like that because you're right, Black people are the blueprint for
Okay,
literally everything in this
everything.
country. Um, but yeah, I just also, yeah, literally everything. But yeah, I just also think it's kind of sad too, just to have to appreciate your life a little bit more because we're in a time and in a place where it could be taken away at any given moment just because you look the way you look. But yeah, I just really think it's important that the protests are happening at the same time as the celebration of Juneteenth
Exactly.
and at the same time as Pride Month
Yes.
because, as you said, visibility. I'm so glad you're using this moment to wrap all your
Me
flags
too.
and all
You
that.
got to. You can't forget. But
Good for
yeah, it's
you.
just a phenomenal
Uh-huh.
experience.
Uh-huh.
Just to be able to have my voice heard, and have other people's voices heard during this time. Because, as we've seen with recent events, they're not our voices are continuously being suppressed. But as I said before, we're finding ways to like build our own table and have our voices heard, and
Yeah.
collaborating with other people to ensure that our voices are heard, and to ensure that change is to come, and that it will be sustainable, and it will last a lifetime. There's a lot of beautiful things.
Yeah. It's because of people like you who are doing the work. Yeah. Like not letting people forget. Okay, I'm gonna leave this time open for questions if anyone has any
Any questions
questions
at all,
for
y'all?
Grant about any of the work that they've done.
Don't be shy, y'all. Ask me a question. I should have put on my glasses.
Let me see if I can. Don't be shy. Oh, I
Okay,
need
like I
glasses too.
have them, I just don't. One of those difficult things, how you have like glasses and you're just like, oh, it's an accessory, not really a necessity. Oh my god, that should be a quote. Anyways,
You should
I
get
need to at
contacts.
this point because I'm telling you, I do not pay no mind to these glasses.
Me neither. When I had glasses, I never put them on.
No one has any questions for me at all?
Hmm.
That's funny.
When are you running for office? Anika says.
Um, I'll run for office
Uh,
probably after I graduate. Y'all just wait on it. Um, yeah, just look out for me 2023, 24. Because I'm gonna need a year. Okay, y'all need to give me some room, like some breathing room. Like I want to make sure because I know right after I graduate from Texas State, I'm going to Germany for a year. Will I come back? We will see. Because if the United States is
ooh,
still acting up, I don't. I do not.
right.
But I've always told myself I always consider running for like a city council seat. That would be like a nice little thing, and then I'll probably just stay there, unless I want to become mayor or something. But I should run for office. That'd be interesting to see
Yeah.
me do because yeah.
Yeah. I think you'd be a great candidate. I, on the other hand, I don't know. I've never considered running for office, but I have recently kind of just seeing the way elected officials are ignoring and covering their eyes at what's
Okay.
happening right now, or kind of giving performative efforts to like cover the fact that they're not doing anything on a civic level. So I don't know. I just feel like the more closer you are to your community, like you said, city council or like local officials or state officials or mayor, like I feel like you can
Okay.
actually do
Okay.
things. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna probably take a little bit of a break after school.
So to his comment, I would
um,
say you can always be an ally because, you know, there's always a straight people or non-conforming people that are allies to the LGBTQ community or to the queer trans people of color community. So yeah, you can definitely still be a part. And how da. I would say just when you look at well, I would just say look at what organizations or businesses serve the queer community in your area and get involved because there's always room for allies to have their voices heard. And if not, like if there's no way that you can get involved, then create your own table of allies and form a group of allies that can help, that can assist with the issues going on in your city or in your town or wherever you reside. But you know what? As an ally, you can go and you know there's always ways for you to help, whether it's with marketing and promotion or helping like plan an event. Because having an ally's voice on a team is very necessary because you always want that what do you call it, that perspective from an ally. Aside from your like queer and trans peers, you want to also hear
mhm,
from your ally peers. So yeah, find in your community if there's any LGBTQ organizations that, you know, have the same mission and value as you. Like if you want to go in helping disadvantaged youth, LGBTQ youth, and there's an organization that does so in your city, just say, I'm an ally. I want to get involved however I can. Just let me know how. And I promise you, I promise you, I promise. I mean, I promise you they got something for you to do. Because, you know, every single organization is needed help. So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you touched on before how it's important to look at people who are
Mm-hmm.
already kind of doing the work within your community or who've already like started the conversation rather than just like going straight to the big dogs in the beginning because you want to build that community and you want to like focus on smaller nonprofits who don't get any type of money or
Mm-hmm.
recognition from like civic leaders and stuff.
Yeah, and also like as the comment says, like
Right,
utilizing that
exactly.
privilege maybe because sometimes you just gotta if you have peers or friends that understand their privilege and recognize it and identify like, okay, I have privilege. Then yeah, use that you could use that, baby. Use it till the wheels fall off. Because a lot of times your voice is like I'm gonna give like one quick example. There's a one time when back in 2018 when I first got into activism, I had this brilliant idea. Okay, it was like a great idea that the organization used, but I have to my friend had to pitch it for me, and I was even put as a lead, mind you. They had to pitch it for me because every time I brought it up several times in the meeting, but they never listen to me. But when my white queer colleague had said it, it was like, yes, this is a phenomenal idea. We should do it. And so, and
Ugh.
even like in the LGBTQ community, there are times where it can be inequitable and exclusive, and just recognizing that is amazing. But in 2018, I was like, you know what, it's fine. But now, you gotta build your own table. Some people will be dismissive.
No, not
Okay,
anymore.
not anymore, because because a lot of people will be
Yeah.
dismissive of your ideas because of who you are. And if you recognize that, then build your own table and go and make your idea into a campaign, into an initiative, into a program. You know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, like, I guess a follow-up to that would be like, what to you would straight allyship look like, or allyship from people who are privileged but are still finding a way to help? Because, like, now I just see a lot of people kind of like really asking, they don't want to do the work themselves, so they are asking everyone else how they can be a proper ally and how they can inform themselves. So, like, what would your answer to them
I would
be?
say for my allies, it's all about being a connector and a collaborator, in said spaces where there needs to be voices heard. Because to be an ally is to take the struggle on as your own. To stand up even when you feel scared. To acknowledge that even though you feel pain, that the conversation isn't about you, and be willing to take your own mistakes and decenter yourself. Understand that your education is up to you and no one else. Like, there's a lot of things within allyship that need to be taken into consideration. Because when you step into that role, like for example, if there's a conversation about what to do with the queer and trans community, like what can we do? Sometimes allies' voices may not be heard because the issues for queer and trans people. And in my experience, allies have been solely used for like volunteer work. But I do believe like allies can voice their opinions about
Hmm.
what ideas they have, what they want to do, and how they can be useful more than just volunteer work. And so yeah, and there's also guides. There's a guide. I don't even know where it's from, but there's a guide to allyship that I was reading last week, which is so funny. Um, that I would definitely recommend, because it just gives you like a full on guide about like how to be an ally, what it means to be an ally, and how to get involved being an ally. And sometimes an ally doesn't just mean just for the LGBTQ community. It could be if you're a white individual trying to get involved with the black space, you can be an ally there. If you're black and trying to get into
Hmm.
the Latinx space, you can be an ally there. Like allies can be a part, are like a variety of things. But at the end of the day, it's all about gaining that knowledge about how you can help in that certain area, whether it's LGBTQ, black, brown focused,
Right.
and utilizing that knowledge towards your advantage. And also like realizing that that some allies do have privilege, stepping into these spaces, and so recognizing that privilege also.
Yeah.
All the tea.
Yeah, like you said, yeah, use your voice, don't just do volunteer work. But at the same time, understand your
Hmm.
privilege and understand the ways in which you can use that privilege in order to make whoever you want, like make whatever you need to be done, like you need to have them take you seriously first and then bring visibility to whoever you're working with. And I also like the thing you said about like feeling their problems as your own, because I feel like a lot of the time when it comes to allyship, they're like, we
Hmm.
see you, we hear you, but like they kind of see it as we're over here and you're over there and we're this outside group and we see you and
Exactly.
feel bad for your struggles, but then there's nothing they're going to do about it afterwards. But like to be a proper ally, you need to feel the same discomfort that they do. Like you'll never have the experiences that
Hmm.
marginalized people do, but like you have to be as mad about it in order to actually care and want to
Exactly.
do something. Going back to that why and like that
Hmm.
core purpose before you
Yeah,
start.
because like
Yeah. Yeah.
and as I said before, like being an ally, be open to listening, be aware of your implicit biases, um, and do the outer work and figure out how to change the oppressive system. Learn how to listen and accept criticism with grace, because as she was saying, like it can get uncomfortable, and you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I'll tell you, do not like this is from yo activist in Austin. Do not sometimes like don't accept. um, to participate for a gold medal or for rewards, um, because sometimes you won't get it. And
Exactly.
don't take credit for the labor of those who are marginalized, and did the work before you stepped into the picture. And don't assume that every member of an underinvested community feels oppressed. And going into allyship is just like changing that paradigm or just changing your mindset altogether about your role in ensuring that communities are having their needs met. Because going back to what I just said, some underinvested communities are not oppressed. There's various different kind of communities. There's disenfranchised communities. There's marginalized communities. There's communities that are facing digital inequity. So different communities have different needs that have to be met as far as like making sure they're taken care of. So yeah, as an ally, just make sure walking in you understand that. Understand that you will not always be rewarded for your work because baby, some work is just volunteer and it's hard. It's sometimes it feels like a lot, but
Yeah.
walking into this. I'm moving my phone a lot, but yeah,
Yeah, it's honestly frustrating sometimes, like when we're brainstorming with the app, like trying to figure out how to get more people involved.
hmm
Like a lot of the times we talk about how we can incentivize it, like give them any small reward. And I mean, it is necessary sometimes because maybe some people aren't as invested in the beginning and then they will over time. But like it is kind of frustrating that especially some allies need some type of accolade or like their
exactly.
resume builders and they want, and that's why their work only centers around like volunteer work. And also I would just say like if you have to unlearn what you've been taught, then do it. Like that's
Exactly,
part of what
exactly.
revolutionizing is. Like hopefully we'll get to a point where we don't have to unlearn
hmm
everything that we've been
hmm
taught and we kind of just learn things, not to take things at face value, but for now, like if you have to re-understand things or,
hmm
reteach yourself, then put in the work, you know what I
Exactly.
mean?
But
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. All beautiful things. And it's all about
Yeah.
unpacking, identifying, recognizing. But yeah, so yes. But I do
Yeah.
thank the Youth Activism Project for everything that y'all have done in the community and have and will be doing in the community. And I'm just excited to just be here on this live and have my article on your blog and just to meet phenomenal individuals like yourself
hmm
through the Youth Activism Project because there's not a lot of there's few activists in the city of Maynard and in the city of Austin that are doing the work. And so just seeing other students in other cities, states, towns, doing phenomenal work is just inspiring.
hmm Yeah, we're based in DC, and where there's just a whole bunch of things and so many groups to work with. But like in places like where you live, where people don't really like have these conversations, it's super important to be able to start them yourself. Okay, it's letting me know that there's only like two
Oh,
minutes
really?
remaining on the live before it ends. So if one more
What's
question here,
all right? What's
yeah, like I think
the
it's only just one
so
hour you
I would
can
say
stay
hit me
on.
up, like follow me, like
Alrighty.
ambitious underscore child underscore, so I could give you like a full fleshed out, detailed answer. But my quick answer is like you just want to what I've realized is you can ask like when there's an
Mm-hmm.
executive board or a team in leadership you can say I want to include these people and I would say have three or four different people who are special needs or a part of the disabled community behind you so you could say me and my friends or my peers and colleagues want to be a part, how can we do so, to make sure like there's like pressure because they know like there's other people involved and because if you go by yourself it's gonna kind of feel lonely and they can be like okay it's just one person, but if you have a community like a group behind you then it can definitely get done, and as we said a gazillion times. Sometimes they won't even invite you to the table. And you just have to create your own table. Whether it's being in, if that table has to be queer inclusive, and inclusive of people with disabilities and special needs, then do that. And sometimes it is hard work, but that hard work can stem into other people finding a community. So sometimes when you feel like there's no room for me here, maybe that's just the universe or the universe nudging you and telling you like hey look, You need to start your own thing to have that inclusiveness, and to have that equity that you want.